I hope you're all doing good today. So I'm going to just go ahead and start with our webinar today. Today our webinar is going to be about how to create multiple schedules for your bill of materials. So as you know, in MWF, we have a few ways you can create schedules for bill of materials. So I'm going to show you a manual way, Revit schedules way, and then I'm also going to show you how to create a costing schedule. And usually if you're creating wood panels, you may add cutbacks for tolerances. So I'll show you how to account for that as well. All right. So let's get this party started. So today I'm just going to be working off of a small apartment complex. And what we're going to do is we're going to first go to our structural plan level 1. I have framed the building already. And there's quite a few panels here, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to set up a shop drawing setting that will allow me to create a bill of materials automatically whenever I drop out or take out a shop drawing or I print out a shop drawing. So let's go ahead and start with that. So first things first, I'm going to go to Drawing Operations, Wall Drawings Manager. I'm pretty sure all of you are pretty well aware of how to set up shop drawings by now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how our bill of materials schedule looks in our shop drawings. So we're going to go ahead and hit this plus sign over here. And we have a few options here for schedules, right? So we have ancillary, BOM by schedule label, combined type A, a few different types of schedules here. Like, as you can see, we have subassembly catalogs, structural connections, hold downs, hardware, you name it, you'll probably find it here. So we're going to go ahead and do, a custom BOM, and we'll go ahead and hit OK. We'll give it a name. So I'm going to call it framing bill of materials. So I'll call it framing BOM. Go to view settings, and you can set up how you want it to be placed in your view. So for me, I'm going to have it placed on my top left of the zone. So top left corner of the zone is going to align to the top left corner of my view, or my schedule in this case. I don't need a title for my schedule. The name of on the sheet, I'm just going to call it bill of materials or framing bill of materials. For your layout, you can basically choose your outline. So I typically do wide lines for the outer, and for the inner I do thin or medium. It's all up to you. If you have your own textiles that you've set up, feel free to play around and add those in. I'm just going to leave them all. I'm going to just leave them as is, and we'll see. So here you'll see we have two options. We have convert to schedule, which will make our 2D line schedule into a real Revit schedule. So we can do that. And you can also choose use material color scheme. So if you have used your project material scheme, it will actually color your schedule the same way. I currently don't have any, so I'm going to just have it convert to a schedule. And then over here in the data, similar to any Revit schedule, you're actually going to be selecting the parameters or fields that you would like to show in this schedule, right? So what we're going to do is, I don't really need distribution labels, so I'm going to get rid of that. Group weight, I don't need CNC opcode, but I do need to add, let's say, schedule label, for example. So I'll add schedule label. If you don't know the difference between schedule label and just our typical distribution label, major difference is that distribution label or our typical BIMSF underscore label will itemize every single stud as a different stud. Even if the stud size and the length is exactly the same, it will still itemize every single stud as a different stud. Okay. But schedule label, it will consolidate it. So it'll find the stud that has the same shape, same name. So it's the same family and type, along with the same length, same reported length. So if those two are the same, then it will consider it as the same item, and it'll give you a count for it. Whereas if it's a distribution label, your count will pretty much be 1, because there's one S1 stud, there's one E1 stud, there's a, so on and so forth. So you can set up your schedule however you like. Okay. And in here, sometimes you can also you can choose your header text if you want, your field, your display type over there. And you can set up how you want your schedule to show. Like maybe you want everything to be centered. We're going to set it up to be centered over here. Okay. And then if you want to add something in here and you want to have it as a hidden field, you want to show it for some schedules, but not all. You may set it up as a hidden field and then just go to the Revit schedule that gets created after to enable those elements. Over here at the bottom, we have a few extra options. So if I go to length or anything like that, I can move these up or down, right? I can add or delete additional parameters. So these are all the options we have. Okay. And then over here, we also have show totals. So it will find the parameters that it can show totals for, and it will show a total. And you can also show diagonal length. So if you create a shop drawing and you want to see a diagonal length for a panel, it will also show one of those. Okay. So that's just the basic schedule. And if you wanted to calculate totals for the group fate, you can have that checkbox turned on, and for the count as well, and then it will show the totals accordingly. All right, similar to our Revit schedule. But this was created way before Revit schedules were at the stage they are right now. So that's why I call it the manual bill of materials, because earlier it was not even a schedule, it was just line and text and it was grabbing real-time data the minute it creates the shop drawing. All right, and then in the shop drawing over here for the framing shop, I'm just going to go ahead and instead of the cut list, I'll choose my bill of materials. Everything else is going to stay the same, and hit OK, hit close. And I'll just take I'll take this panel here, and I'll go ahead and create a shop drawing. Give it a second. So what this will give you is, at the moment when you're creating your shop drawing, it will run your schedule label, it will run distribution on your panels, and then it will give you a nice little table with your studs and your lengths that are the sizes and the lengths of your members. Give it a really quick second. Oh, interesting. That's fine. Oh, it did not create a framing BOM. That's not fun. Let's just quickly go to that. Panel 34. Interesting. I think maybe it's the schedule issue. Give me 1 second. I'll retest that again. Okay. Let me just not convert to a schedule. Schedule label, and then count and description. Everything looks good. Maybe not do those two. Let's see. It typically does work fine. I'm just going to do it again. Let's see. Okay, run that again. It's probably a good idea to turn that off. All right, we'll run that again. The reason this takes a little while is because it's checking if there's any duplicate panel panel drawing has been created, and it's going through all the panels and making sure that none of the members are in the other panels. Then it creates the shop drawing. So that's why it takes a little second to cache all the panels in the background. Okay, at least that worked. There you go. So if I double click in here, you'll see this is the lines. I think there's an issue with it converting to a schedule maybe. But you can see that it's actually just lines and text. So this is why I called it the manual schedule, because this was created before our Revit schedules were robust enough to be able to accept this much data. All right, so it gives you your group weight, it gives you your total weight, and then gives you total count. And it did not give you total length, but they're two different members anyways. But this is the actual length of each member that is this size. Okay, it's a very simple schedule. The other form of schedule that we have is, again, through the shop drawings, but we have to first create a Revit schedule that it can mimic. So I've already drawn one up here, but I'll show you the settings that's used in there. So we call it the master framing cut list. Since everything in MWF is actually set up as sorry, I'm just going to make that larger. Since everything in MWF is actually set up as a structural framing family, it is actually easier for us to basically create one category family, one category schedule. Earlier, we used to do multi-category schedule, which also used to work great. But in this case, we want to only use a single category because even our studs in our panels are set as structural framing category. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to add in family as well, because as you can see in the schedule, we can see everything. We can see the plywood sheets. We can see the typical studs. Again, we can see plywood sheets and so on and so forth. So these are for each panel. It's being organized by the panel. That's why it's kind of separated in that format. So I'm going to just show you how to fix that issue really quick. So I'm just going to add in family. And over here, I'll just go through the fields that we have. BIMSF container is basically your panel number, okay? You'll notice there's no panel number listed here, but the reason we have this panel number is so that we can sort our panels according to the panel number. So we can sort all the elements in one panel according to that panel number, okay? The next option we have, or the next field we have, is the schedule label. So again, this is the consolidated label. So this is the parameter that's being used for it. It's called BIMSF_schedule label. Okay. Actually, I'll also load in BIMSF label to show you the difference between the two. So I'll have label show up here and then schedule label right below it. And then I'll add in family so that I can remove the sheathing family from the list. And then I have type, which will tell me what size of member it is. I have the count of how many because I'm using schedule label. And then I have my reported length, which is the actual member length. And you'll notice I have to have another field for total length. And the reason I have to have a different field for total length is if I go into formatting and I make my reported length have it be calculate the totals. What it ends up doing is, since this is five members that are 10 feet in length, it will say the length is 50 feet. But in reality, that's not the real cut length. The cut length is actually 10 feet. So I want to know the real cut length. But if I make this, if I have reported length be calculating totals, it will actually tell me that is 50 feet. Okay. So I'll show you what that looks like, so that I'll calculate totals for reported length, and you'll see that it technically matches total length. In this case, total length is actually not another field. It's actually a calculated parameter. Oops. Let me hit the pencil here. It's a calculated parameter, and basically all it's saying is the name is total length, and it's again reading the reported length parameter. Because technically, yes, we want to calculate the total length, but we want the total length at the end as well. And we also need the cut length. So the total length in this case is literally what the reported length is going to be, but we're going to have this one calculate totals and not the reported length calculate totals. Okay, so I'll show you what happens when I set that reported length to be calculating totals. And then the last one we have here is the weight. So the weight parameter is this weight parameter is actually weight per foot. So in this case, it's pound per foot. If I wanted to calculate the total weight, I would actually need to create a formula. And then I can call it total weight, similar to our reported length. Total length. We'll have total weight. In this case, since we're talking about the weight and mass, we want to go to structural discipline, because in the common discipline, we have mass density, but we don't have the proper weight. We want pounds, right? So we want to go to structural, and then over here, we're going to scroll all the way down. And currently our weight parameter is weight per unit length. So I just want to get the weight unit. So this type is very important, because this is what specifies what unit this this parameter's values are going to be. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to take my reported length and multiply it by the weight. That's it. Okay, so that will leave us with just instead of weight per unit length, the lengths get cut out and just the weight gets left out. Basic math, right? So we have all of these fun fields added in. Next, we're going to go to filter. I always like to filter with BIMSF container, because if the elements are not created by MWF, it will not have a BIMSF filter or BIMSF container value. Every panel has a BIMSF container value. If it's a single layer panel, definitely has a BIMSF container value. If it's a multi-layer panel, it also does have BIMSF container value now in our recent build. So basically, BIMSF container has a value. Reported length is the cut length, has a value. If it doesn't have a value, it probably is the panel label, right? Because the panel label says panel 101. That's exactly what the BIMSF container data is. So in there also, in that panel label also, we have BIMSF container as a parameter. So that's why it gets read. So that's why reported length, we want to set it to has a value. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to say family does not equal our sheathing family. So our sheathing panel family here, I do not want it to equal our sheathing panel family, because I wanted to not show that in this schedule, because it's our master framing cut list. Next, next we have an option to set up our sorting and grouping. So if I set it to itemize every instance, you'll actually see every single item in here. So I'm going to leave it the way it is right now, and I'll hit OK. Okay, and now you see like the schedule's a little larger. I probably don't need the family field or parameter here. I just needed it to omit the sheathing family, so I can hide it. I don't need that in the schedule. And now you'll notice we have our BIMSF label here. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go to my formatting. I'll not make this a hidden field, and I'll just go to that panel. Give it a second. It's just a lot of data for it. I'll just go highlight that in the model. That's fine. I'll just run our distribution on it so that we can add a schedule label for it and run my distribution strategy. If I had a shop drawing for it already, it would have already run that strategy for me. But I just want to run it for that panel so I can show it to you right at the top of the schedule. So you can set up your strategy, and you can say if you want it to be like C0 only, or do you want it to be C00, so you can set your sequence width accordingly. I'm just going to leave it at 1, and you can choose how you want it to start. I wanted to start at 1 instead of 0, so we'll set it up that way. And that's all it is. So what it will do is that it'll identify identical members and subassemblies, and it will, within a single panel with the same value, and for individual labels, individual members, the label is stored within schedule label parameter, which I mentioned. So now that I'm running that on this panel, I can go back to my master framing cut list. And you'll notice all of these members belong to panel number 3. Okay, it has a few openings and fun things like that. So it has a few elements in here. So you can see the difference clearly between BIMSF label versus BIMSF schedule label. So this label here is BIMSF schedule label. It's consolidating everything that is exactly the same. So over here, this is a 600S 137-33 bracket 33, and that's 9'10" in length. And you're right now, since we itemized every instance, you're seeing 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 all the way down. So if I was to go to sorting and grouping, saying, hey, yep, I want to sort it by the BIMSF container and then the type. And then if I set it to BIMSF label and I uncheck itemize every instance, it wouldn't matter, because since the BIMSF label is anyways identifying each individual member, you'll see your count is still 1. Okay. So now what if I sort it by the BIMSF schedule label and I have that itemized every instance unchecked? You'll see that the BIMSF label becomes varies, and that schedule that was all the way down till here, since we showed every instance, or because the BIMSF label was showing every instance, it's just this short because there's 18 members that are exactly the same. So we don't have to mention them over and over and over again, but those 18 members are basically being considered based on their cut length. Okay, so you'll notice that the cut length and the total length is the same. It's because I made the reported length parameter calculate totals. If I set that field in formatting, if I set that field to not calculate totals, it will actually tell you that, hey, you have 18 members that are, I believe that was 9'10" in length. Okay. And over here, you'll notice the BIMSF schedule label is empty. And that's because when you can run the distribution on the entire project if you like, or when you run the shop drawings, it'll automatically run it for you. So usually when you're running your shop drawings, it will automatically create the schedule, and it will produce the BIMSF schedule label for you. So in this case, I don't really need to see the BIMSF label. So I can actually hide the panel number and the label so that I don't see that in my schedule. Because when I'm creating a shop drawing, what I wanted to do is I wanted to mimic this schedule for that panel, right? So I wanted to use the same parameters in the same order that I've set up, and I wanted to read that. I wanted to show that data, in that schedule for me. So I'm going to center the total weight. And what I typically like to do is, since I already have a nice little shop drawing created, right? I like to grab, it will look really bad on here for sure, but I like to grab that master schedule and maybe even isolate it for one panel, just so you can, you don't have a lot of stuff being loaded on that sheet. So I typically like to just quickly filter, and I'll just say by BIMSF container equals, and then just give it a number. So in this case, let's say panel 3, for example. Okay, so it's isolating it for this. So these are all the values that are going to be shown underneath. And we can basically go into our sheet now. So we can go to 34. And now that we know that the sheet's been created, now we can add our master framing schedule. The reason I like to add it here is just to make sure that it's not going to interfere with my panel. So right now, the width of it looks decent. So if I click outside, I can move this over. If I click outside, you'll see the width is decent, except, oops, except the size is getting a little squished. So let's extend that. Either that, or you can reduce your text size to allow it to, not take up too much space. Right now, it seems like the text size is the same, so I don't want to mess with it. I'll see if I can squeeze label a little bit without it doing that. Then I have cut length and total length. Maybe total length I can squish a little bit. Weight and total weight, maybe I can squish a little bit. And that's basically what I end up doing. I just like to organize it to see how I want the schedule to look. And since this is the master schedule, whatever you fix in here will be copied before you do your shop drawings, right? So I'm going to say none for this. But what I'm also going to do is in formatting, I'm going to get my total weight to be calculate totals, so that we actually get a total value for steel over here. Okay. So now that I removed the panel 3 restriction, and this is what it looks like. Okay. So now how do I create a schedule that will mimic this one, right? So let's go into our shop drawings again. So wall drawings manager, I'll go to SSS shops. In this one, what I'm going to do is, instead of using the framing BOM, we are going to use the custom schedule. I've already created one, so I'm going to go ahead and open that to show you the settings. But it's basically going to open the same screen. You just give it a name. I gave it a framing cut list as a name. Again, top left. And then over here, you can choose your categories you want to show. Typically, it's just structure because it's a framing cut list. I don't need to show anything else. And then the only reason you need to account for this is if you have flat straps that are on the outside, like closer to the gypsum board side, or bracing that's on the outside of the structural layer, you may want to add a few extras, but otherwise it typically captures all the structure in one shot. And also, since it's mimicking your schedule, you don't have to set up any text or anything over here, because it is going to copy exactly what's set up inside your schedule. Okay. And then over here, instead of setting up fields, you can choose duplicate existing schedule, and you can choose your master framing cut list in that list. And like I said, the layouts are not required after that, and then you can hit OK. So that's your framing cut list over here. So again, for the framing shop, I'm going to just swap that setting and change it to framing cut list and hit OK. And hit OK and hit close. All right. So I'm actually going to get rid of this, and I'm going to let that be where it was relaxing before. Go back to level 1, and let's maybe pick this panel to do our shop drawing for. So we'll go to shop drawings, go ahead. If you have any questions, please do type it up in the chat or within the Q&A. Sorry, it's just creating the shop drawing right now. And I personally prefer the schedule route because whatever text, font, colors, style I set up in my Revit schedule, it's going to follow that. It's giving me this error because I don't have sheathing, like I don't have plywood sheathing in this panel, but my shop drawing settings, they do have a plywood sheet. So that's why it's saying we couldn't create anything. There was nothing inside the view, which is totally fine. So if I go to the framing shop drawing here, you'll notice that it created my schedule for me, and this is a real Revit schedule. So if I wanted to mess with it, I could. But it gave me my total length over here and gave me my total weight, and it gave me the sizes and everything. And So right now I have this as my tag. I can definitely change this up to match what I have over here for my labels. So I left it like this on purpose so that I could show you how to do it. So let's go ahead into edit label or edit tag. And then over here, this label, we want to change it to read the schedule label. Inside the same label, you can, or inside the same tag, you can set up both. You can set up BIMSF label and schedule label in case you're doing a non-consolidated schedule. Feel free to do that. So over here, what we're going to go ahead and do is choose our parameter that we want to use instead of the type name. All right, so we don't have that parameter here. We have to load it in from our shared parameters from the MWF shared parameters. So over here within shared parameters, we're going to go ahead and select. You'll see that since we ran MWF in Revit already, it already has loaded in the parameter file. So since it's already loaded in the parameter file, we're just going to go ahead and look for BIMSF schedule label. Okay? And load that in and put that in here and remove the type name. So over here, it doesn't really matter what I say, but I usually write C00 just so I can gauge how much, if I want to create the box or if I want to extend the size of the tag, I can add that information in here. But I just want it to be a nice and small tag. But if I wanted to add in the BIMSF label as well, all I have to do is copy and then paste a line to the same place, edit label, and then again load in the parameter for BIMSF label. There. And I can just write that, copy, paste it here. Oops, paste. I'll call this T00, maybe for a track, but yeah, I just want to be able to differentiate between those two. So that way now when I click on T00, I know that's my BIMSF label. So to make it visible only when I have BIMSF label turned on, I'll just add a visibility parameter to it. BIMSF label, and I'll just Control-A copy. I want it to be under visibility, and I want it to be a type parameter. And then I want to add another one, and that's going to be the same thing, except it's going to be schedule label. Did I spell schedule right? That's fine. It's going to be schedule label. And again, it's going to be under visibility, and it's going to be a type parameter. So here I'm going to do BIMSF label because I'm selecting T00. And then I'll tab and select C00 and set the visibility to BIMSF schedule label. And then inside here, you can basically say, I can copy this and say, not this, oops, not this, and then close it. So that way, whenever that's checked on, this will not be. And if that is not checked on, then this will be checked on by default. Okay, and you can just rename them to be, this is BIMSF underscore schedule, BIMSF label, and then create another one to say BIMSF schedule label. Wow. Schedule label. Okay. So when it's BIMSF schedule label, I'll uncheck that and it'll automatically check this one on. Okay. That's done. We can load it into our project. Sure, I'm going to load it into all three. If you want to save it aside, you can. I'll just save it in here for now. Okay, there you go. So over here, now that we're back in here, you'll see that our boxed version that has been used everywhere is using BIMSF label. We wanted to use BIMSF schedule label instead. I just have to swap that value, and you'll see that these are all tagged as C1, and it says C1 is equal to this size, and this is the quantity, and so on and so forth. Okay. So that's basically how to do bill of materials within the shop drawings. You can definitely use that master schedule in multiple different ways. You can grab the total weight of steel. You can grab a total linear length of specific materials, like if I wanted to duplicate the schedule and get rid of everything MWF from it, in the sense like all the parameters, I can basically come in here and say, well, for you, I don't really care about the BIMSF container label, schedule label. I care about the family, and well, I actually don't want to identify the family either. I just care about the no, actually, let me cancel that out. I think I should keep the family so we can identify this the type of members you're using. 1, 2, 3. I'll keep the family, the type. We'll do the count, total length, total weight, and so on and so forth. Over here, if you don't even care about the reported length or the actual weight, you can just hide those parameters. You don't need to see them. You can just see the total length and total weight. And then you set up your filters and fun things like that accordingly. So I'm not going to have a filter there at all. I'm going to just say reported length has a value. And then I can sort it by family, type, and then total length and total weight. And then we can just go ahead and take a look at what that does. So right now it's still breaking it up by the length. If I ignore that completely, if I say none for all of that, the best part about calculating totals is it'll actually tell you for this member size, you're using 2,243 items that are that size. Cut length varies for all of them. So it doesn't tell you the cut length. So you can hide that field too. You don't need to see it. Or if you don't need to see it, hide this as well. And then it tells you the total weight over here as well. So if you just need a quick count, and maybe you can just quickly frame the entire building and just get a quick count of how much steel you may need, you can add that value in here. And if you want to ignore or remove the sheathing values and fun things like that, feel free to do that by just adding it to the filter for the family type. Does not equal sheathing panel. And that's it. It'll get rid of that as well. All right. And this will give you a nice little overview of what you're using in your project. Okay. And along with this, you can also add in additional things like cost values. So for cost values, I can go ahead and there's a cost field or parameter in here, but this parameter is just a number. It doesn't have any unit associated with it. It's just a number. So in order for us to calculate the cost per length, we have to create a calculated parameter that's called cost per length. Oops, cost per length. And then over here, I'm going to leave it as common. And I would love this to be a currency, but right now, in order for it to work and not have it give me an error that the units are not going to match, we're going to make it a length value. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the cost value, multiply it by the length value, or the total length, and hit OK. And that's my cost per length. It did not give me any errors. It's just going to keep it nice and simple. Okay. But since this is set up as length, it's going to tell me that the unit is length. I don't want that. So within formatting, I can change my cost per length field format. Instead of using this, I can just have it, or I can use I can use feet and fractional inches, or I can just say decimal feet. there, and then I can say 0 decimal places or 2 decimal places. And then all I'm going to do here is have it be none. I don't want it to have any symbols beside it. And then hit OK. And you'll see that the values are empty. And the reason the values are empty is because I haven't added a cost value per length for that size yet. I'm also going to make sure that this is calculating totals. And there you go. Okay. So for this cost, I have to type in a cost per length for that member. Typically, since it's cost per length, and my length is in feet, I would say what's my cost per foot. So I'm just gonna give a random number according to what I'm just making up numbers actually. So I'm just gonna say this is $1.25, and it'll apply to all. Fine, that's fine. Per foot, apparently I'm saying it's $1.25. And then over here, this will be, I don't know, $2.50. And then again, I'll make this $1, $1, and then I'll make this $2.25. Okay, so this is basically how you can set up all of your cost values and have them show up over here. You can have them horizontally aligned, centered, doesn't matter, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's basically one way you could show costing in your schedules. You can even turn this off or hide it so that it just shows you your cost per length value here. All right. The last thing I wanted to show you is how to add cutbacks, and that's typically for wood panels. I've seen, or at least I've seen clients that use MWF Pro Wood ask for that feature, and this is something I've learned to, place in some schedules when asked. So I'm just going to go to, I believe it's this one. Here, okay. So I have a wood project here. Ignore the question marks. I don't have I replaced the tag for the gypsum board by mistake. So over here, basically we have a wooden panel or a wooden panel. And sometimes what we want to do is add a little bit of a cutback to this. So in order for us to do that, we first need to create a parameter for our panels or for our members. So what we can do here is we can go ahead into project parameters, and we can create a parameter that's going to be called cutback. If you create a shared parameter, it will be inside your family. If you create a project parameter, it's just going to be in your schedules. Okay, so I'm going to set it up as a length, and it's going to be an instance, should say type or instance. I'm gonna leave it as an instance parameter, and I'm gonna apply it to my structural framing because that's basically what we are using. So we wanted to only apply to that, and hit OK. Okay, there's a cutbacks parameter right there. Now, when I create my schedule, my master framing cut list for this, what I can do is I can come here. This is a very small project. It only has one panel in it. It's nothing complicated. But basically what I can do in here is I can add the parameter for cutback. Okay. The reason I set it as an instance is because maybe in one panel, you may want a 1/4 inch cutback. Another panel, the same member, you want a 1/2 inch cutback. Depends on your tolerances, depends on what the tolerance is being used for. If it's a basic construction tolerance that you want all over for all studs, you can definitely just add it as a type value. But if you are going to add it as a type value, I do recommend having, if you only want that value to apply to your studs, then have that family type be different for your studs versus your tracks, because with wood, everything can technically be the same member size. You can also choose to have only one family and just have like a track family or track type and a stud type. That's a 2x4, for example, or 2x6, for example. All right, so now that we have that, we have the cutbacks. I'm going to just go ahead and add that in. And over here, for all these 9 items, like the C0s, those are all my studs. I want them to have a cutback value of, oh, I need to make it a shared parameter, don't I? I did this before. Yeah, it needs to be a shared parameter. Sorry, give me one quick second. I'm going to go inside the family here, actually, and really quickly add that in. Thought it was already added for this. Edit family. Okay, and then over here, we're going to add a quick cutback parameter. So manage, we're going to go to shared parameters. I don't recommend you do this, but I'm just going to do this for the sake of the webinar. I'm going to create a new parameter in here and call it reported length underscore cutback. Okay. And okay. And then I'm going to basically have that added to my fields here. And I'll say new parameter, shared parameter, and just get that reported length cutback parameter here. There, and I'll go ahead and add it as a type or an instance parameter, whatever you like. Hit OK. And basically what this is going to do is whatever value you put in here, it will, I can have a schedule read that formula, read that information and subtract it from a formula using a formula. So I'll load that into the project again. I'm not going to load it into all, just this one. Do you want to save changes? No, let's just go ahead and do this. Okay. So now that I loaded it in, I can go back to my master framing cut list and just, before I do that, I got to go to manage project parameters and then new parameter, and that I have to use the same shared parameter. So reported length cutback quickly. And then again, just say it's for structural framing. That's it. Run. Done. Really quick. Now we'll go to fields and we're going to go ahead and add that cutback instead of this one. So we'll remove this. Reported length cutback. There you go. And we'll move that up and hit OK. So, so we can specify the value here. So let's say I want this to be quarter inch. So I'll say quarter inch cutback, overall cutback. So maybe it's 1/8 on both sides, but I need the reported length to be correct so that when my machine is cutting the members to size, it cuts it at the right size, right? So I want to make sure my overall length for that member is correct. So my reported length cutback is literally just a quarter inch shorter. Okay. So basically, we're going to make sure that schedule has that cutback length. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a formula that says cut length, LEN cut length, LENGTH, and we're going to have it be a length value. And all it's going to do is take the reported length minus the reported length cutback. That's it. Okay. And since we have that, my total length also, I'm going to have it not read the reported length. I'll have it read the cut length. The reason for that is my reported length will be listed for my top tracks because it's 0 for the reported length cutback for those. But for the studs, it's actually going to be a value that's specified because it's an instance-based parameter, right? So I'm gonna just go ahead into my modify schedules and hide that value there. And you'll see my actual cut length is 8.7 1/4 now instead of 8.7 1/2. And I can hide that, and there you go. That's my new cut length. And over here, there's no, I think that's because this is an old file. Give me a second. Highlight and model and cancel and edit. I'm just quickly going to load it in again. Yeah, this is instance and this one really quick. Reported length parameter or reported length cutback. Okay, that's all I need, and load it into the project. Okay, and no. Override existing. All right, and go back to our nice little master schedule. And see, I didn't put in a cutback for this, so it still says 10 feet. It was 30, like it was 3 times 10, so it's 30 feet there. But I didn't put in a cutback value for this, so the cut length is still the same as the original value that we had. All right, that's basically how to add cutbacks and cutbacks to your studs so that you can actually account for some construction tolerances if needed. And that's actually it for today's webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat or in the Q&A.